Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Snark Bait, your favorite snarky podcast.
I'm Christy.
I'm Sophie. I always
And
forget to do that.
no, I'm usually the one that forgets to do it. And today we're going to be talking about Girls Gotta Eat. Now, this is a much requested episode. We're going to be going over who they are, how they came to be, their disastrous live shows, their performative activism, the sparkle eyes of it all, their families, and all the lore that is Girls Gotta Eat. So come join us.
I'm excited. Let's dive in.
Let's do it. Sophie, how's your week been? It's been a full 24 hours since we last talked from
Uh,
recording DET.
I know, but a lot has changed because I woke up with a sore throat this morning, which
Oh,
is very annoying, but an excuse to get matzo ball soup and my favorite cream soda, Dr. Brown's. Actually, and I'm not just saying this to be like skinny, my favorite is the diet cream soda, and they only had the regular cream soda. But either way, it's so freaking good. I was telling Chrissy it's like a Jewish deli staple, Dr. Brown's. It's the best. But my nephew had his birthday party this weekend, actually in Philly or the Philly suburbs. And that's how I got sick because it's like a petri dish, an indoor playroom. I didn't even tag the location. I posted just a picture of me and Henry and my nephew at his birthday. I got so many DMs from Baby Snark saying, "Oh my God, you're at Charming Star." Like I go there all the time. They recognized Charming Star Playroom, whatever. I was like, is Charming Star the new polo bar? Like I did not know this was like such a hot ticket.
is it like a Chuck E. Cheese?
It's like just a playroom. Like it literally just has like it has like a little like jungle gym. It's like an indoors. It has a little like ball pit, which by the way, Henry like jumped in at one point. He was like, "Look, Barry." Like he was talking to our other nephew. He was like, "Look, Barry, I'm gonna jump in the ball pit." And I was like, "Henry, do you realize how many germs?" And so yeah. Anyway, long story short, I'm sick, which is why I'm glad Christy is kind of going to be driving this episode as a girl's got to eat historian. How are you doing, Christy, since we last spoke?
Okay, so when you're talking about playpens, I have this like war flashback of me when I was a child at a McDonald's when I was maybe 9. And this woman had approached this other like young child's mother. And she goes, "Excuse me, your little boy peed in the balls."
About you?
No, no, no. No, but I witnessed it and just as a child at 9 years old being so traumatized, thinking, oh my God, the balls that I'm like playing in were just peed in by this random kid.
Yeah.
And now I just
Yeah.
think of those balls being peed on.
I miss those McDonald's, like things I miss from childhood. The McDonald's like play sets were so much fucking fun, you guys. I don't care that the ball pits were covered in piss and cesspools. They were so fun. I don't know why McDonald's decided they're going to be like a chic bistro inside now, because if you've been to a McDonald's recently, they like try to be a chic bistro. They try
Chic.
to be like, yeah, they try to be like Panera Bread, which in my opinion is like the chicest of bistros. And then also like Wendy's sunrooms. What happened to those?
Oh my God, Wendy's sunrooms. I also feel like Arby's had that as well. Am I making that up?
Justice for Arby's, you guys. Everyone always talks shit about Arby's. Do you like Arby's, Christy? I love it.
Honestly, I'm like, not like other girls. I don't really, it's not because I like just, I don't know. I don't really eat fast food. And I'm not trying to sound annoying when I say that. I just don't. But I love an In-N-Out. In-N-Out, delicious, nutritious.
I've only had In-N-Out once. I thought it was overrated. Sorry. Like I would choose Arby's over In-N-Out any day. Is that like really controversial? Let
Let
us
us
know,
know.
you guys. Let us
Let us
know.
know in the comments on Instagram
I'm
or
gonna
if you're
get like
listening.
death threats for saying that.
You know what I think? A lot of people from the West Coast that are born and raised on the West Coast believe that In-N-Out is the pinnacle of fast food, of just, no, not even fast food, of restaurants in general. However, if you were to ask an East Coaster or a Midwest person that didn't necessarily grow up with In-N-Out, they would probably say the same thing. I think it's like a cultural thing.
Oh, for sure. I feel like on the East Coast, everyone's obsessed with Shake Shack, which is
Yeah.
good. But like, I still would choose like Arby's, Taco Bell, McDonald's, like fast food wise, over Shake Shack or In-N-Out any day.
No, absolutely.
Just
Also, wait,
because, again, it's like that's what I grew up with in like the Midwest.
I'm a mess today. I am babysitting, dog sitting my mom's dog, and I don't know how
Hank.
Hank
It's like Hank Lames.
lames. I don't know how women with children deal with it. Like, I am a one person, I live alone. I don't have to take care of any goddamn thing besides myself, me, myself, and I. Having to take care of this dog and work a full-time job, plus this podcast, which
Yeah,
I love and it's so near and dear to my heart, it is so much work.
it is. And I relate to that right now because Henry is out of town on a work trip.
A
And so it's
single
just
mom who
who
works
works
two
two
jobs.
jobs.
Stop
Who
singing.
loves it? Stop singing. So it's just me and Bax. It's just me and Bax. If you're watching on video, you can probably see him behind me, his little body sleeping on the bed. But yeah, worked the full-time job. Now we're recording. It's 7, almost 7:30 East Coast time. So like between like my work finishing at like around 6, I was like, I need to take him for a walk. I need to feed him. Like I've been ignoring him all day because I've been working. Like it is a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot, but as we always say, this show is something that we come back to. And I am so happy to be discussing Ashley Hesseltine and Raina Greenberg of Girls Gotta Eat podcast. They are a much requested topic. So many
Yes.
people have found us through the Girls Gotta Eat Snark, Reddit Snark page. And I'm curious, having not really, I don't think you listen to their show at all, right? So
No, no, I've never listened to Girls Gotta Eat. I feel like Christy, you are like so like in the know when it comes to like you listen to original Call Her Daddy, you listen to The Toast, you listen to Girls Gotta Eat. Like I listen to like my Bravo shows and like some show recaps and then like true crime. Not like other girls.
And that's why we have like differing interests so we can kind of cover a
Yes.
multitude of things on the
Yes.
podcast. So what have you heard about Ashley and Raina and Girls Gotta Eat?
I know that they have been in the business, the podcasting biz, showbiz, for a while. They've been doing it for a while, and they kind of are that genre, that similar genre to the original Call Her Daddy, where they were always, I don't know if they still are, but from what I've known about them is that they're a little bit raunchy, a little bit no holds barred, like kind of like no filter, openly talk about sex. And that's kind of like all I know about them. So I'm excited to like learn more about their lore.
Yeah, I have been a listener of their show, I think, honestly, since maybe 2019. So I've been listening coming up on 6 years at this point.
Wow. And you
And
still do like regularly.
so over the last, I would say probably 4 or 5 months, the episode quality, and I swear to God, this is not because I have been reading Reddit and it's been infiltrating my brain. Like I genuinely have been listening to them despite the downward turn that the podcast, that so many have said the
Hmm.
podcast has taken down to. I don't know what it is. Their podcast content is just not really relatable anymore, and I find myself not really excited to listen to it as much as I used to be. Like they were the first podcast that I would listen to every Monday morning. Having lived in a city, being a single girl myself, when I was living in SF, I really felt akin towards these two women. I loved that they were a bit older in age when Raina and Ashley started the podcast. They were in their mid 30s. Ashley, I think, just turned 41. Raina is about to turn, like, I think she's close to 40. I'm not sure of her exact age, but I really resonated with them in the sense of, like, wow, you have these two women that have taken kind of an alternative route to success. They're single, they're killing it. And I could see myself being friends with them. And I think that's what kind of gravitated me towards the show to begin with. And honestly, a lot of my girlfriends actually listen to the show as well. I've even attended a live show with two of my old coworkers when I was working in San Francisco. We did like a trip to Los Angeles to see them back in I think 2021.
Wow.
Yeah, so
What
we've
do
been
they call
like
their fans?
oh my God, what is it?
Eaters?
No, no, this is gonna bother me. I don't know why it's I'm blinking. Snacks.
Snacks. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, they
I'll
call
give
them
that to them.
it is
It's no baby Snark,
I
but
mean
it's kind of cute.
none could be. But yeah, I think that over the last couple 5, 6 months, their quality has waned, and I think it's a culmination of things that I'm so happy to get into why they have become so divisive over the last couple of years. So should we just dive right into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, who is Ashley Hesseltine? So, she is an LA-based comic writer, podcast host. She originates from Dewey Beach, Delaware. She's very, very proud to be from Dewey Beach. She even named,
Ooh. I was gonna
Yeah,
say that's kind of cool. It's like a vacation spot for like East Coasters.
yeah, so she often talks about how her life growing up was very picturesque because growing up in like a beach city that's often
Hmm.
flooded with a lot of tourists, she just has a lot of like fond memories. And I think that was always kind of cool listening to her upbringing. She seems to have like a really fun childhood and a fun upbringing. So yeah, I had no idea. Is that where like a lot of Ohioans would vacation?
No, 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 not at all. I'm from like the most landlocked state in the US, but I know that people on the East Coast, like people from like the DC suburbs, like I went one time with my friend who's from DC suburbs. Um, and like just East Coast cities. It's like very easy to get to DC area, Maryland suburbs, whatever it is. Delaware, obviously, Philly even. Okay, anyway, sorry.
But she is feels such a connection, obviously, because she grew up there. But she actually even got proposed to at Dewey Beach when her and her fiance were vacationing with her friends and family, and he had set up this whole thing, which we will definitely get into because there's a lot of lore surrounding her engagement. But in any case, she began her comedy career in Atlanta. She had went moved to Atlanta after she had graduated from Clemson University, and after living in Atlanta for some time, she had found herself to New York City, which she said was the most pivotal moment in her life. She said that she was super broke in her 30s, not really knowing which way to go. And she found herself in New York City. And she said that that's where her dreams basically all came true. Now, over the last, I think, 2 years now, her and Raina have since moved to Los Angeles. Raina has even purchased a home in LA as recently as like the last 2 months. So they're here to stay in LA, but I feel like the magic that was Girls Gotta Eat was so closely intertwined with their living in New York City. I don't know what it is. Like living in New York City breeds fabulous podcasts.
I
I
mean,
mean,
Christy, now you just got to move here. You said it yourself.
I know, I really should. Can you imagine?
Please do.
That would be amazing. So who is Raina? She is a writer, photographer, blogger, content creator, and obviously the co-host of Girls Gotta Eat. She, interestingly enough, has a background in the culinary world. She has taken, I think she went to like a, I don't know if it was like a, what's that Michelin type French Le Bleu? Oh my God.
Oh, is it New
Cordon Bleu.
York
Thank you.
Cordon Bleu? Okay.
I don't think she went to Cordon Bleu, but like something like that. She's like a trained
Wow.
chef, and she even had her start in social media as a food blogger. She had the handle called One Hungry Jew, which interestingly enough, our producer Jordan, she told me that in college, her and her girlfriend had like a food Instagram account, and they often would tag One Hungry Jew, not even realizing when we were writing this outline. Jordan's like, wait a minute. We used to tag One Hungry Jew all the time. Like she was a big kind of content creator in that space. Do you remember like 2017 when everyone had a food account? That was
Yes,
such,
I did too.
me too.
Me and my cousin did too, and it was called Bomb Noms.
Ours was called, oh my God. Now, this is really embarrassing. I don't even know what it was, but we got invited to a couple events.
Wow. Okay, we did not get invited to events, but bomb underscore noms with a Z, you guys. It's still up if you want to go look and me and my cousin.
I love that. Yeah, I started one with a coworker of mine. Okay, now I remember. It was called All of the Bites SF. And it was
Cute,
like all of the
cute.
lights, but like a play on the
Oh,
now, but
cute.
RIP, like to Kanye and his whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, so they both have really interesting kind of starts in being kind of digital creators. I forgot to mention that Ashley, prior to Girls Gotta Eat, she founded a couple of comedic Instagram accounts, one of which called Bros Being Basic, and she also had another Instagram account that was called Fashion Dads. And so they both have kind of had their start in Instagram before Instagram really popped off in like 2017. So how did the podcast start? It started in 2018 and it's hosted by Raina Greenberg, Ashley Hesseltine. It's a top comedy podcast that is centered around dating, sex, and relationships. And they say that they cover everything from breakups to blowjobs, finances to fetishes per their website. And they've now increased to 2 episodes a week, similar to, Snark Bait. They release episodes every Monday, Thursday, and they recently signed with Dear Media.
Just a pause. I think for context, Call Her Daddy did they start in 2018 or 2019?
Call Her Daddy was subsequent to Girls Gotta Eat. I don't remember the exact timeline, but I do remember Call Her Daddy was after.
It was after. Okay, so they
Yes.
were like actually like pioneers in the
Yes,
space.
absolutely. I think that their podcast centered around like female empowerment was the first of its kind, especially when I remember when I started my first podcast, which is so embarrassing and I never talk about it. It was called Shade and Fog with a good friend of mine, friend of the pod, Emily.
Oh my God, what was it
And
about?
it was about like dating in San Francisco. And we would like
Shade
bring,
and fog. Oh
yeah,
my
kind of
God.
a play on SF, but we kind of try to be almost a girls gotta eat, but based in San Francisco. And we would bring on guys that we've like hooked up with or dated and talk with them.
Oh
No,
my God, I love
it was
that.
like a funny concept. I don't even know
Christy,
if you could.
I would love, and I'm sure some of our listeners would love if you talked about your dating misadventures.
Oh my gosh. I mean, where to begin? I did have a couple of funny ones and just like kind of like that could be a whole other like Patreon because it's kind of
Ooh.
dark-sided sometimes.
Oh my God, we should. I mean, I haven't had like, a good dating story in a really long time, obviously, but I had some good ones also. I would love to hear yours, Christy.
Likewise. I mean, we're thinking of, well, we will start a Patreon in the near future. So when that does roll out, we will definitely cover a couple of more personal stories if you are
Yeah.
so interested
Yes,
in
we
that.
will obviously keep you guys posted. Anyway, sorry.
No, no, I love that. I love that tangent. So the
Shade and
girl,
fog, shade and
shade
fog.
and fog. So the girls, because they were already digital content creators, they serendipitously were both invited to go on a press trip to Aruba. Like I think maybe late 2017, early 2018, a couple months prior to when they actually started the show. And Ashley, I remember her retelling the story, maybe on a different podcast or maybe on Girls Gotta Eat, where she actually had an idea to do the podcast with another co-host. And for whatever reason, I can't even remember, it might have even been like a male co-host theoretically. But for whatever reason, that podcast idea and that partnership kind of just fizzled out. And so she realized, okay, I have to start from the ground up. Do I do it solo? Do I do it with another co-host? And when she had met Raina on this trip to Aruba, they kind of bonded on both being single. Ashley has spoken about how she was going through this breakup and she was kind of just not trauma dumping, just kind of like gossiping about this breakup with Raina, and they became fast friends. And on a whim, which kind of is reminds me of you and I, like we didn't know each other's work ethic. We didn't really know each other super well before starting this show, but
Mm.
Ashley lended out the hand and said, "Hey, Raina, like I'm interested in starting this show. It's going to be centered around my personal life. Like you have to be game to talk about sex, dating, guys you fucked. Like this is going to be no holds barred." And Raina, of course, was super in, and that's how Girls Gotta Eat came to be, which I think a lot of people don't realize that when you start a show, a podcast, like as much as it's very fun to listen to, like it at the end of the day is like a business. And it's really, I think,
Mm-hmm.
difficult with like, as we've seen with the Call Her Daddy girls, to actually find a partnership that jives well because it's all fun and games until like it
Shit
becomes
gets
real
real. Yeah.
and there's work involved. And I think, and I've
Yeah.
talked about this with you, Sophie, like it's been so nice to have someone that works just as hard as I do and we have different types of like strengths and we play on one another's strengths. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's kind of what Raina and Ashley were able to develop.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Raina is a little bit more of like a type B, and I think
That's me.
Ashley,
So I'm the Reina.
you're the Raina, and I think I'm a little bit more the Ashley, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
really bode well for them because they've been able to build a really successful brand, especially being
Balance each
OG.
other out.
Yes,
Yeah.
balance each other out and being the first of its kind. So they actually started operating independently from the get. And they were, as I just mentioned, were acquired by Dear Media. I want to say over the last maybe year or year and a half. But prior to that, they were 100% independently owned. And I think that has enabled them to acquire, I think, a lot of wealth, which we'll get into it, but Ashley doesn't let you forget it. They have been able to earn
Mm.
so much money, not only from the podcast, but also from like the residual side projects, like their live shows, their comedy tours that Ashley does, their vibes only wellness, sexual wellness company that they've been able to develop. Like they've really built a huge empire. And I think what a lot of people don't realize that are listening to the show, because Sophie and I have taken like a couple calls with various podcast networks, and for whatever reason, we just decided not move forward. But what we've learned is the industry standard to kind of team up with a podcast network is typically anywhere between like if you earn $1,000 from this ad, the network will take 40% or 30%, and then the creator will take 60% or 70%. The industry standard is between the 60-70 for the creator. I mean, if you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, if they've been able to operate independently, they were taking home 100% of that revenue. Maybe like, a couple to their team, whatever, but like they earned a lot really quickly just based on their operations alone, which is,
Wow.
I think, what a lot of people don't realize. Because I think that's how the Toast Girls were able to get so successful because they were independently owned for so long until they were acquired by Dear Media over the last, I think, 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
It really is. There's a lot of curiosity from a lot of their listeners. They are very vocally liberal, very vocally Democratic, voted for Kamala in the 2024 election, and they have signed with Dear Media. And I'm actually curious, Sophie, your thoughts on when people that are so vocally Democrat or liberal decide to sign on with like a podcast network that may not align with their political beliefs. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because there's a lot of conversation about that online.
Yeah, I mean, like in a perfect world, we would only work with and align with a network or representative that fully, aligns with our viewpoint, like our point of view, our politics. But it's just like it's so much easier said than done, especially in like, I'm sorry, I hate to be that person to be like in this economy, but like kind of in this economy, like it's hard to, you know, turn down such a massive, massive network like Dear Media because there are only so many. And Dear Media is one of the top most powerful networks just out there in general. And
Yeah.
they do so much from what we've heard. They do a lot for their shows. They really help you grow. They really promote you. And it's like it's hard to say no to that, And I understand that like the Bostics like are very problematic and you know, they have their politics that a lot of people don't agree with. So I understand how it's hard to rationalize it.
Yeah. And I think I totally like agree with that. I think a lot of the times I think of how many bosses or how many executives have I worked with where in their political beliefs aren't necessarily aligned with mine. So I think the girls unfairly, like I have to play devil's advocate a little bit. I think the girls get unfairly criticized for signing with Dear Media when it's like at the end of the day, like you still have to earn money, and it's still like
Yeah,
we still
that's
live
the
in a
thing.
society where you have to get your bag.
Yeah, we live in a capitalist society. We live in a patriarchy. We live in a capitalist society.
Yeah.
Like that's just the reality. So I can't really blame anyone. Like if Dear Media approached us, like I'd be lying if I said that we would just be like, "No, fuck you."
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And actually this harkens back to a scandal that the My Favorite Murder girls went through, I think in like 2019.
Oh
I
my
think
God,
it was
I
either
forgot about My Favorite Murder. Like, do people
I
still listen to them?
I I don't know. I was obsessed with them. Like I was literally listening to their show within like the first 5 episodes. And interestingly enough, Georgia went to my high school and
Oh my God.
which I love. And Karen lived in San Francisco, and Georgia grew up in like the same city I did, obviously. So I like connected with them on that level. I just felt like just regionally we were very connected. But they had a lot of controversy when when their show was acquired by Wondery, which is owned by Amazon. So they are so
Mhm.
vocal about like being liberal women, like, just the most wokest in the
Yeah.
game. Right. And so many fans were upset because they were like, how dare you sign with Wondery, who's in bed with Amazon? And like at the end of the day, it's like, I cannot hate someone who's just trying to earn a paycheck.
Exactly. Exactly. Also, it's so interesting. Like, I haven't listened to My Favorite Murder since probably like 2016. But like, it's interesting that they're so like quote unquote woke when like all they do is like giggle about like murdered women. It just like doesn't seem very woke to me, in my opinion.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. They had like a pretty
Yeah.
big cancellation, I think last year, of people just calling that out. I seriously
Yeah.
stand them so hard, so I can never say a bad thing about them. But
Like
yeah,
I said, when we were talking about like podcasts that we listen to, um, I listen to a lot of true crime
mhm.
and I like to listen to shows that actually take it seriously. I don't like the giggly like murders and margaritas or like whatever those shows are. And no shade if you listen to those. I just feel like there's a certain tone that you have to have. Okay, sorry, that was like a tangent.
But I think, yeah, Crime Junkie, I think, does a really good job of
Yeah.
being objective and kind of just keeping the focus of the story on the victim and the family.
Yes, exactly.
But let's talk about their controversies. The most recent controversy that I think really took the internet by storm was back in September 2024, where a man flashed his genital region to the audience at a
His
live show.
genital region, which we talked about. We talked
We
about
did.
on like, I think it was a snark dump like forever ago.
Yeah, that was one of our original, like our OG episodes. So let me quickly speak on my experience at a live show because, as I said up top, I have been to a live show. What I will say is, Ashley is, you could tell I mean, she does comedy as like a side hustle. She's been doing stand up for decades, I think, at this point. So I could tell Ashley was very much in her element. And she was actually a lot funnier than I actually even anticipated. Like, I don't really find her to be super funny on the show. I'm not like cracking up, laughing my ass off. But on the show, I'm like, oh, she's kind of a natural at this. I will say that. Raina was a close second. She was a lot more like affable and just boisterous than I kind of expected. And I mean, I wouldn't say it was horrible. I would say if I could rate it 1 out of 10, it was probably like a 5.5. Wasn't horrible, wasn't amazing.
Could have been
Um,
better.
could have been better, but what I will say is it was very chaotic. So they would do segments wherein they would say, okay, let's try and find the girl who has like the craziest twerking. And rather than like picking these girls ahead of time or having their team pick girls ahead of the show starting, they said, whoever has good twerking skills, come on stage. Okay. So just imagine it's
Uh,
completely all over the place. There's
you have to like
25.
screen, you have to screen people, I feel like, for these types of things.
Exactly. And it just felt very like I didn't come here to watch random chicks like shaking their ass up on screen, popping their pussy.
Right. They're there for Raina and Ashley.
Yeah. So I kind of felt like it was a little bit disastrous and just chaotic. So, all that to say, this experience of a man flashing the audience does not surprise me, just having been to a show. So, what had happened was Rain and Ashley called out a Hawkeye in the audience, and basically, like they try and do crowd work, but it becomes out of control. They'll find like the one guy who's clearly thirsty, just wanting to be there to get hit on by a bunch of single women, and they'll interact with him just to give him a lot of attention. Like you can tell men are there for the wrong reasons, right? So there's
Hmm.
an instance in which they called out a Hawkeye in the audience. He wouldn't stop talking from his seat. He just tried to be like main character energy, just super cringe. Again, we didn't come to the show to see this random man just talk.
Right.
Um, they went on to tell some personal stories. Like Raina was talking about how she was getting fucked by a guy in Vegas, and Ashley was about telling us about how she knew her fiance was the one because she liked his dick soft. Like, I don't know. It's just a little bit
Oh.
crass.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I guess that's their brand.
That's their brand, but it's also just like not very funny. And I guess a girl had previously wrote in to their email saying, "Oh, I'm about to go to your St. Louis, Missouri live show. I want to talk to you about me and my husband's sex life." And allegedly, this woman stopped at a truck stop sex shop, which like what even is that? And before the
Those
show,
are two words that should not go together.
because when I think, actually, I'm not even gonna get into it, but that's just DE, dark energy all
Like
around.
when I think about a truck stop, it's like a gas station.
I also think of
Why are you getting like a sex toy or like a vibrator from a gas station?
exactly, it's just not the time and place.
You're gonna get like a gag ball from
Like
like the Speedway.
a gag ball,
Like a harness.
a swing.
A swing.
You bring the swing to the show. Yeah, so this woman and her husband, they purchased a butt plug that I guess
Oh.
the man was wearing to this show. And one Redditor said that this man, just for context, not that it really matters on the appearance, but I think it really paints the picture because we will post him on our Instagram. This man is heavy, bald, in his 40s with a beard to his belt line. Okay. This couple, and then Olivia, our researcher, says this couple was from St. Louis, Missouri. Ugh, I apologize on behalf of my city. And then later in the show, they invite a bunch of men to the stage for a dance off to win a vibrator for their female partners also at the show. So of course, 15 men square up, they go up to they go up to the stage, including said hot guy as well as this butt plug guy from
Oh my
before.
God.
Both the hot guy and this butt plug guy with his beard down to his belt line already had their tops off upon entering the stage. And in small groups, they perform their little dances, and the intention is for them to, I guess, strip on stage, which, like, I don't want to see that. Again, I didn't pay $58
Yeah, I
to
was gonna
watch a,
say, did you say how much that costs? Like their live shows on average?
I want to say, depending on the seat, like we were in the back, I want to say probably maybe less than $60, around $60, including taxes and
But
fees.
still,
And
that's not nothing.
that's a
Yeah.
lot. I mean,
Yeah.
we traveled to LA, we had to get a hotel, like it was the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is. So Raina and Ashley told the men, feel free to take your shirts off, but please keep your pants on. And at this point, when it's hot guy and butt plug guy's turn to go, butt plug guy takes his pants off and his underwear. He flashes his penis and uncages his cock ring that he had on. And the hot guy in his underwear started flashing his butt cheeks to the audience. Okay. Everyone is obviously stunned, including Rain and Ashley, because they had no control over the crowd. They didn't do their diligence to ensure that whoever was going on stage wasn't going to sexually assault everyone in the audience. Naturally, people were demanding, like, why didn't they kick him out? Why didn't they just exclude him from
They
this final?
they
They didn't.
didn't.
No, allegedly not. And so some of the audience, upon seeing this disgusting behavior from these two men, walked out and they spoke to security. And some girls were crying and they were visibly upset. Security did nothing. And this made a lot of fans lose respect for Girls Gotta Eat. And people just felt like you're violating the entire audience. Like this feels like assault. And they never apologized. They never acknowledged that it had happened. They systematically deleted any comments from their Instagrams that brought it up. And if you go on their Apple Podcast reviews, you will see so many a review saying, why are you guys not addressing the sexual assault that happened at your St. Louis, Missouri live show? And an example of one Apple Podcast review that Olivia pulled up. Quote, not for the girls anymore. They let their audience be flashed and sexually harassed by a man at their live show, and they have not addressed it still. I wish I could rate 0 stars. They are sellouts. And again, we had talked about this at one of our earlier episodes.
Yeah.
Sophie, do you remember that guy? Like how disgusting he was?
Yes.
I
Yeah, it
can't
was
even.
disgusting. Yeah, there was like a photo of it. But yeah, I mean like you said, they can't control it, I guess. The only thing that they could have done is retroactively like screened these people that they were going to have on the stage or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily their fault. It is, but like they also could make the argument that it wasn't, obviously. But like the fact that like they aren't even addressing it and apologizing and I think when we talked about this, we said that like them addressing it would have made it a bigger thing. So maybe they were afraid of making it a
Yes.
bigger thing.
Right.
But still, like I feel bad for the people in the audience, obviously feeling completely unsupported by these women that they paid to see and look up to.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. You can't control. I mean, first, I guess the first stop would have been just literally, what's it, screening the people that you're bringing
Right.
onto stage. So I think that's probably where the true mess up was. But okay, you can't control everyone's actions. They come up on
Right.
stage, he flashes his penis to everyone in the audience. You maybe should make a public statement because it's making its way throughout the internet. It's all over Reddit. Screenshots are coming out of this man flat, like what he looked like. I mean, this is just not a good look. And I think this is when the tables were I think the tables were already starting to turn, but the tables were swiveling at this point. They were just like, we're not taking this anymore. This is ridiculous, abhorrent behavior.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really disturbing. So they're often called out for a lot of performative, like social justice and racism. So there was a 2020, like obviously during 2020, the BLM movement was heavily rampant. And Ashley, of course, loves to talk about this black gentleman that she dated in college. And she always says, no one loves black culture more than me. No one loves hip hop and rap more than
What?
me. She said something along the lines of like, I've dated black people in my past. And at one point, Raina followed up with something like, she's the least racist person I've ever met. And I think a lot of the
Hmm.
way that they discuss social justice feels performative to a
Yeah.
lot of people. And what
And
I
it's
will
like, why are you tokenizing like the one black guy that you dated? Like that's inappropriate. Okay, sorry. I interrupted you.
No, no, no. I think that's exactly it, though. I think that's what people are saying, the criticism. And what I will say in defense, and I don't want people to say like, X Nosage is this fan. Like, no, no. I think you can see both sides. I think it's not black and white. I think that they have said a lot that I think does push the needle forward. Like I remember when Roe v. Wade was overturned, they released like a 45-minute podcast episode. And I distinctly remember me and my best friend, who was an ex-listener of the show, she no longer listens. we called each other and we're like, that was a really, really moving episode. And this is, I'm kind of brought back to the reasons I really enjoyed them to begin with. Like it was so poignant what they had to say. And I wish I could just, we can maybe even link it in the show notes because I just felt like it was a really outstanding way to just articulate why the overturning of Roe v. Wade was so difficult for women and why it was so unjust. So
Hmm.
I do want to just shed light to the fact that they're not always performative. Like I think that two can exist.
And I mean, it's also kind of refreshing to know that they do even veer into politics territory because there are so many podcasts, whether it's pop culture podcasts or whatever podcasts, that are like, we will not talk about politics. We will not touch it. We will not discuss it. I know even on
The
our show,
toast.
yeah, the toast. But even when they do, they definitely veer right, obviously. On our show, like, it's not like we try to avoid politics, but we know it's like a touchy subject.
Yeah.
So it's like the fact that they are so loud and proud about being liberal is kind of refreshing.
No, I completely agree because I think they don't stand down. There are a lot of comments on their Apple podcast that say, I'm so sick of you guys saying this liberal rhetoric. I don't want to listen, but I think they're not afraid of speaking their truth, even if it means losing audience members. And whether or not
Right.
you are Democrat or Republican, I think that's says a lot more than most people that are willing to just say
Hmm.
nothing and just keep everyone
Right.
right. So, to be honest, like I don't think I could do that. I think I would just be firmly like, I just want to please everyone, and I want to make sure that I don't deter any political group, and I'll just stay neutral just for the sake of just keeping this a light show. And I think most people would say that.
Right. Right. That's the easiest way to go about things as a
Yeah,
podcaster today because everything is so polarizing, you know?
absolutely. And I apologize. My dog is
Hank, Hank,
Hank. He stopped right when you said that. I think he heard you.
Hank.
Um, so yeah, I think that a lot of people also say like, okay, so one Redditor, the handle is thoughts underscore R underscore hard. This person said, I personally feel that they embody a certain kind of liberal. They speak about timely topics so everyone knows that they're on the right side of history, but they clearly don't care about the actual voices and stances of those affected. They will always claim to have discovered something or having ties to groups that have no actual ties, like Ashley clearly wanting credit for participating and feeling tied to the Black community via her Black college boyfriend and love of a certain kind of music and having lived in Atlanta, yet having no long-term Black friends, which is kind of like a, huh,
Hmm.
eyebrow raising thing. And this person goes on to say, part of why I stopped listening was a selfish, quote, this affects me way that they approach a lot of political topics. Their unwillingness to hear Black and Indigenous and persons of color who called them in, and their intensely cringe fetishization of non-white men. And I think this kind of goes back to something that happened a couple of years ago, and it was an episode that they released in June 2020, and they had an like a the girls got to eat snack Facebook group. Remember when Facebook groups were like all the rage?
Yeah, I feel like they still kind of are in like some subsets.
What are you part of any?
I am, but I never check Facebook. So I just like by proxy don't check my Facebook groups that I'm a part of.
No, same. I couldn't even tell you like the last time I logged in, but they used to have a Girls Gotta Eat snack page, and Ashley faced a lot of criticism for handling discussions on race within the podcast's Facebook group. So members alleged that Ashley was deleting posts by women of color addressing racial issues in and around the time of the BLM movement, which of course led to accusations of the Girls Gotta Eat girls silencing marginalized voices, and in response, the group basically appointed like a moderator, like on a subreddit. They appointed a woman of color as a Girls Gotta Eat moderator. However, shortly thereafter, the group was basically shut down, which further fueled a bunch of controversy. And they basically came up on their podcast and said, like, let's talk about this whole Facebook debacle. And they framed the episode kind of like as a defense rather than an apology. So Ashley recounted the incident in their Facebook group where discussions on race became really contentious. And she acknowledged that she was deleting a post containing the phrase pay me bitch, which she cited as group guidelines against language such as using the term bitch, which like what does that even mean?
What?
Um, Raina and Ashley described feeling attacked by individuals who unearthed some really problematic content from Ashley's decade-old blog, and they were pissed. Um, there was
Oh, what
some,
was it? I haven't
so
heard about this.
there was. she obviously has been a writer, like a blogger for decades now. And she always, again, emphasizes her longstanding appreciation for Black culture and her personal relationships with Black individuals. And there is a little bit of a snippet I will share. So she was basically talking about how she was set to go on a international trip with her family, and she had just gotten a passport and she lost the passport, right? So I'm going to read it really quickly. It had. I searched my apartment high and low and could not find the thing. I looked all day Tuesday, half of the day Wednesday, the whole time understanding the meaning of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. On Thursday morning, Trey alerted me. You threw it out. I know you did it. I've done the same thing. I hate him. I decided I would forget about the whole thing while traveling to Charleston that weekend for a wedding, and, per my friend Kate's genius suggestion, have my cleaning lady and her crew, don't judge me, come on Monday and try to find my passport. They were always finding random things I had misplaced. For example, Dewey's bones, her deceased dog, headphones, vibrators, etc. They always found random things while cleaning, so I thought they might be able to use their powers on the missing passport. They didn't find it. And the more I thought about it, I probably shouldn't have mentioned there was a passport up for grabs to two ladies that may or may not have been illegal immigrants.
Oh my God.
So people were very pissed. They were discussing, I think they were discussing these unearthed blog posts by Ashley Hesseltine. We're calling it out on said Facebook group. And of course, all these old blog posts were getting attention, and the Facebook group was subsequently shut down. There's also been like images of her floating around the internet of her doing like, I wouldn't even say blackface. It's just she's dressed up in this like, remember when Countess Luann did
Yes, and she wore like an afro.
yeah, yes, Diana Ross. She did a Diana
Yes, Diana
Ross,
Ross.
and that's kind of like what Ashley was doing. She had a big afro, and people were like,
Oh God.
"Dude, this feels like kind of
Racist.
cringe." Yeah. So in September 2022, they released a quiet quitting episode. And I distinctly remember where I was when they released said episode. I was in Portugal listening to it and thinking, holy fuck, people are going to be pissed. They had basically made a whole episode saying people who work, this is like kind of sugarcoating it, but they basically were saying people that work corporate jobs are lazy and entitled for wanting to be fairly compensated.
What?
And it was a little bit, I will say it wasn't that egregious, but it felt very condescending and preachy, talking essentially about how their generation, they're like older millennials, just learned to hustle and they just worked. Like, get your fucking ass up and work. And how, if you paradox or juxtapose that against younger millennials or Gen Z, they do not necessarily have that same work ethic, that same hustle, and they're not built the same as people of
What?
Raina and Ashley's generation are. And of course, the irony is not lost on me that Ashley, self-proclaimed, has always said that, it was really hard for me to work in a corporate environment. It was really hard for me to be to not be my own boss. I just don't work well with others type of mentality. And Reina, on the other hand, has actually, I respect her opinion about corporate America far more because she's worked at Amazon. She's worked at, what was that? Groupon. She's worked in corporate America. She's worked in tech. So I think she's earned a bit of her stripes. Whereas Ashley's hawking all this stuff about how corporate people just want too much and we're not willing to put in the work, while really having never worked a
What?
corporate job herself.
I don't understand like what her point is. Like what do you like because people who work in corporate America sometimes like sit behind a computer. Like what is her point? Like yeah, that's like what a lot of people do is they work corporate jobs. That is how we make a living, like including you and I.
Right. And I think
What?
I remember the context of this episode that I failed to mention up top was, remember the New York Times released a quiet quitting like
I do remember
op-ed.
that. How people were kind of just like doing like the bare minimum.
Exactly. Because
Yeah.
people were basically burnt out and they realized that I could work, an extra 30% to basically get the same pay. So I'm
Hmm.
just kind of going to take a back seat and just kind of cruise. And they were
Right.
basically responding to this New York Times article saying, like, that's not how you,
People are lazy.
yeah, people are lazy. They don't want to climb the corporate America because they're too, they feel too
Well,
entitled.
also it's like it's a different time. I know they're not our parents' age. They're like just slightly older than us, but like we feel very disenchanted with, just climbing the corporate ladder, quote unquote, because no one gets anywhere anymore. It's
Right.
it's a different world. Like you used to be able to actually climb the corporate ladder if you're Gen X or a
Mhm.
boomer. Like it doesn't work like that anymore.
Right. And, not to mention it's so much more difficult for our generation to purchase a home. Like we aren't
Yeah.
afforded the same
We're
privilege.
disenchanted. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we're not afforded that same privilege that was granted to our parents or even like our older cousins.
Like, shut up, Grandma Ashley. I'm sorry.
People were
She's like barely older
pissed.
than us, but that pisses me off.
I mean, but like she's kind of a decade older than both of us. So I think we do have a right to
Mm-hmm.
sorry. But
Sorry.
but I think the reason people were so pissed, I mean, obviously the messaging is horrible. I think the reason people were so pissed is like coming from you who just like you don't understand what it's like to work in corporate America and you constantly brag. She's so braggadocious about how much money she earns. I mean, literally, I was listening to an episode this morning because I was curious what they would have to say in anticipation of this episode. And literally, Ashley was talking about how the power imbalance sometimes of relationships and how is it okay to basically the premise of the episode was is it appropriate to ever lie to your partner about white lies. So for instance, like an example of this was Raina was saying, I have a really big shopping problem. I acknowledge that I shop a lot and I would probably tone that down if I'm meeting someone for the first time, right? And Ashley goes in to say she always has to like push into the conversation into the podcast episode how much money they earn. She'll be like, "Well, I mean, let's be real. You have so much money." Like she'll always say things like that. Oh,
So
I mean,
weird.
trust me, I have enough money to, shop as much as I want. Listen, I have so much money I could buy a house. I just haven't had, the right house hasn't
What?
landed in
She's
my lap.
so weird.
She loves to push to the listeners. I am so successful. I fly Delta One or whatever, but I'm always the first in line with the handicap in the military. I'm always in the
Oh my
Delta Sky
God.
Lounge. She loves to talk about how she flies first class business.
Oh my God, that's so weird. What a weirdo. What a
It's
weird. First of all, being like kids these days, they don't know how to get their ass up and work. And then also like bragging about flying like Delta business class. Like,
constantly,
who, like, what?
constantly. And it's to me, this is gonna sound like so stuck up, but like the people that I know that are rich will never post that they're on. Like you just don't post it like that. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just like it's so nouveau. It's like
I've n
Shannon Shannon
oh
Ford.
sorry, Shannon Ford. Yeah, Nouveau
Yes.
Riche.
Yes.
I've never been on a private jet. Knock on wood, one of these days, one day. But all I know about flying on a private jet is that the people who post about flying on a private jet are the ones who never do it.
That's correct. That's actually factually, objectively correct.
So if you're posting that you're like on a private jet, I'm like, okay, first time, even though I've never been
No, I'm
first
like,
time,
no, I know.
loser.
But like she just loves to make being wealthy and coming into like new money her entire personality.
So
And
weird.
it's really weird. And I think this is where it really kind of triggered the hell out of me. So in October 2024, her and Raina had an episode with this TikTok couple named Alex Bouffard and John Bouffard. I'm not
I
familiar with
haven't
their
heard of
work.
them, but what a last name.
Bouffard. I apologize
Buffard.
if I'm botching that, but essentially they talk about they're like a couple on TikTok. It's kind of like what hey, what's her name? Jason Tartick and Kat would be
Oh,
like,
cat stickler. Yeah,
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 the
yeah.
coupley shtick or whatever.
Ugh, ugh.
Ugh. So they were discussing with Alex and John, like, how did you get started on TikTok? And Alex and John basically explained that they had to dumb their content down for their videos to perform better. And then they, the girls, Ashley and Raina, start to make a joke of John for being dumb. And then Ashley responds, well, John's a therapist. He's not like a truck driver. I mean, I brought in this dumb idiot. Like basically saying that truck
Truck
drivers
drivers are dumb idiots.
correct. And
Yes, I
people
remember we talked about this also.
were enraged because they were like, that's really, really ironic for you to say, considering your fiance who you love to brag about when you've historically prided yourself on being so wealthy and only wanting to attract a man who is at your level financially. Now all of a sudden, and again, there's nothing wrong with her fiance's position to be clear, but it's just the high horse that she spoke about in finding in her potential partner, only to realize that, oh, I wasn't able to catch a guy that was at my level financially, but I'm willing to make an exception or whatever. So her fiance didn't go to a 4 year university, which Not judging at all. It's just interesting considering all the prerequisites that she had prior to meeting him. He doesn't have a quote unquote elite job either. He's like a customer success rep at Tesla. Um, doesn't have a bachelor's degree. Again, nothing wrong with these things, but Ashley prides herself on wanting someone who's just like so educated and wealthy.
Well, right. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. And we talked about this. We basically said the same thing when we talked about this months ago on a previous episode. There's nothing wrong with any of those things about her fiance. But if you're going to look down on and talk shit about other people's careers and other people's husbands or whatever it is, like this comment that was left on Ashley's Instagram, she says, "My husband is a truck driver." Like, if you're going to talk shit about other people's husbands' careers, then we're going to analyze the shit out of yours.
Every single thing. You better believe I was on his that man's LinkedIn. So I thought this woman,
Like white on rice.
like white on rice. So this woman called her out on an Instagram comment, which literally blew the subreddit up. It had like 500 upvotes or something like that. So this woman, I won't read the whole thing, but I'll read the part that's juicy. So she goes, "Da-da, my husband made," okay, actually, I'm going to read the whole thing because it's actually very pertinent. "My husband made the decision to leave his teaching career of 5 years to become a truck driver because the starting salary was twice what he made as a teacher, even more with overtime. It was the right move for us to support our family. Welcome to the USA. As for your fiance, it is well known that he works as a customer support rep at a dealership service center and is not college educated. Pretty much anyone off the street can be hired for that role. For years on your podcast, you talked about wanting to be with a quote CEO type quote, but you wouldn't even secure a second date. Now that you've settled for someone in a customer support role who has never ventured beyond his hometown of Warburn, stop saying he's from Boston," which I thought was so funny.
Oh my God.
"You should think before you speak. And despite spending 1 week total together, because they were long distance up until literally last month, he was in Boston, she was in LA. They got engaged when they haven't spent more than a week together in total. And despite spending 1 week together total, you've signed up to financially support him for life. Congratulations. At least my husband, the dumb truck driver, can fully support our family financially and extremely well. That's more than your fiance will ever be able to say. So, before criticizing anyone else's profession, maybe take a look at your own life and the choices you've made." And it got so many likes. And you better believe
She ate that.
eight, eight.
You would never see me again if someone left a comment like that about like me, my husband, my life. Like you would never see me again.
Never. No. I'd be gone. I'd be gone. I'd be disappeared off the face of this earth,
Yep.
name change, everything. And
Yep.
of course, she deleted it like instantaneously. But this, of course, lives on the internet for all to see. And everyone was like, she left no crumbs. This is exactly what we're talking about.
Wow. Wow.
So, moving on to Ashley joking about her DUIs, she loves to talk about how she's had
That
multiple
is
DUIs.
insane. That's insane.
Not one, not two. She's had three
Why?
DUIs.
That's not cute.
No, and she
That's
mentions it
disgusting.
multiple times in early Girls Gotta Eat episodes. And if I'm recalling correctly, I do think she even brought up how she met a dude at one of the drunk driving, like the classes that you have to take. And they went on a couple
God.
dates. Like she just shows really not a lot of remorse and essentially like uses them as a talking point when she's guesting on other podcasts as well. There's been a lot of clips of her discussing them on other shows, just flippantly talking about them as if she went to, the grocery store. And
That's disgusting.
it
So
is
does she like still has her license then? Like she still drives, like she should not be on the road. Three
it,
DUIs is
three.
unacceptable. That's Karen Huger.
Yeah, no. It literally, no, exactly. It is Karen Huger.
Oh my
And
God. That's
people are just,
pathetic.
people are grossed out. And, here she is. She loves to talk about how my dad was really into cars and we're just a car family. And I bought a Jaguar. She loves to talk about her Jaguar, because she has so much money. Um, let's go into like the bragging about the money and like this, just the grandiose whatever. Again, she loves to talk about how much money they have, a cringy new money move. She'll always kind of flow into the podcast episodes, like why she is such a hustler and like a baller. For instance, she had her 40th birthday party in Mexico. She had rented this huge like compound of an Airbnb, I think in Cabo or Cancun. And she loved to weave into the episode, I rented this like Airbnb compound and I just comped it on behalf of all my friends, because I'm just like,
Cool.
I'm just so wealthy that they don't have to chip
Good for
in.
you that you're able to do that, but like, why are you telling all of us about it?
Correct. It's like, why is that relevant at all to the podcast
Right.
conversation? You could just say we went to Cabo for my birthday. Why do you have to slip in there that you comped it? Um, it's just things like that are just so disgusting. And as I already mentioned, she loves to talk about how, she would love to have a home in Dewey Beach. And she grew up there. She wants to raise a family. Oh, actually, no, she doesn't want to raise a family. She doesn't want kids, but she wants to like grow up there with her and her husband. And she loves to talk about, I made an offer on a house and it didn't work out. And she always loves to tell people, even though Raina bought a house, Raina just bought a house in LA, but she loves to talk about, like, well, I could buy a house myself. The right one hasn't come up. Like, she always has to
Okay,
just,
Danielle Bernstein.
who
Even though Danielle
just,
Bernstein just bought a loft, a Tribeca loft.
I posted it on my ex knows all story. I'm like,
Shut up, bitch.
shut up. Sophie's like, shut up, bitch. Not even
Shut
laughing,
up,
just
bitch. Just like, shut
shut
up.
up. Speaking about how she kind of like bullies Raina at times as well. She,
It sounds like Raina is like not the problem here. Like Ashley sounds like the problem. Is that
yes,
correct?
yes, I think that the majority of the listeners take issue the most with Ashley. I think Raina definitely has some issues that she hasn't necessarily perhaps explored with a therapist. And I actually don't blame her. Like, I actually find Raina to be like a really likable person. I don't really have a issue with her. I think she just has a lot of things that she hasn't dealt with in her childhood, maybe.
Mm,
But Ashley constantly does this thing on their Instagram where she'll post like really unflattering photos in the thumbnail of the IG. And Raina constantly does not look very flattering. I mean, I posted a couple of
that's
instances.
so mean.
Like, I can never see you doing that.
No, absolutely not. That's really mean to do to your friend and your co-host.
And I think it's also like, what do you gain from doing that other than to make yourself feel like the hotter of the
Yeah, like
two?
I'm the hot one or something.
Yeah, it's mean-spirited. And people often talk about it. They're like, everything that Ashley posts about Raina is just very unflattering. And is yeah, it's just not nice. Um, let's see what other things
What
she.
about the 9/11 joke?
Oh yeah, so they had posted or they had recorded an episode with this guy Mateo Lane, I believe. He's a comedian based out of New York City. And they had posted an Instagram story basically teasing the episode. And I watched it because Olivia did link it in the show notes. And Rain and Ashley are sitting on their couch in their New York City studio. And they go, okay, upcoming episode on Monday is with Mateo Lane. We're so excited. It's going to drop on 9/11. And then Raina kind of pauses and Ashley goes, oh. And Raina just starts cracking up. She's like, ha, 9/11, like, ha.
Oh God.
And it's just like, it's not funny. I don't know why they find like really random things to like laugh about, and it just is not humorous in the slightest. Um, so yeah, that's just one instance of them being kind of weird.
Oh
And
God.
okay, I'll speak on a couple more just because I think these are really funny. So there's this instance of Ashley being a Karen. So she went to go purchase perfume at Le Labo and they had a sign on the front door that said, "Hey, we're getting coffee. We'll be back in a few minutes." And Ashley then went on a rant on her IG stories about how she was pissed that the employees had stepped away for 15 minutes to go get coffee and that she couldn't get the perfume that she had traveled all the way to Le Labo to get. And people took to the comments and they were like, why are you freaking out about these people making minimum fucking wage at Le
Right.
Labo and you're just being super dismissive? And they were just basically saying this is such an example of you being dismissive of the fact that one, the world doesn't revolve around your schedule. And two, employees at a place like that are more likely short-staffed. So your expectation for everything to be perfect is just more proof of your Karen-esque privilege and your behavior.
Yeah.
I,
Oh
I,
my God. Like, what's the big deal? Relax.
so yeah, Ashley's behavior. is just generally Karen-esque. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that she often just tells these anecdotes on the podcast. And I think this is just an example of like many, many examples. It's not a one-of-one experience. And that's the one thing I feel like I really relate to Raina on is I feel like she's kind of she she she's so likable, and people often believe that Ashley's kind of overshining her because she's so uh, disciplined and just like it must be like this. And Raina, I mean, Raina has autonomy at the end of the day as well, but I think Ashley is such a control freak where it feel people feel like Raina's sparkle is being dimmed, and that makes me really sad because I just really like her and I don't really take that much issue with her per se.
Wow, that is so interesting that you kind of have, even though they really balance each other out, it kind of is, like we said at the top of the episode, but it kind of is like Ashley has so many like problematic things and has said and done so many things that it kind of takes away from like Raina.
Yeah, and I think that it's you're kind of teetering this line of you have created the show together. Not only do you have the podcast, but you have Vibes Only. Like you've built this freaking
Hmm.
empire. And Raina is just so intertwined with Ashley's family as well, which is like Raina has often talked about her struggles with her family and how she's super close with her dad, but her and her mom always had problems growing up. She felt like she was always kind of objectified for like developing breasts at such a young age. She felt like she got the wrong attention from men at like age 11, age 12. And I feel like she's really sought a lot of solace and familial ties with Ashley's family, just not being as close with her family. Like her brother lives in
Hmm.
London. She's not super close with her mom. Her dad is remarried. So I feel like she finds a lot of comfort in Ashley's family, who seems fabulous.
Hmm.
Um, but it's almost like Ashley kind of wields the power almost in such a way in many avenues in their
Yeah.
relationship is kind of what I see. And I
Yeah, it
feel
sounds like
badly.
it. Yeah, it sounds
So
like it.
so
Ugh.
I know it's not the best power dynamic, and people are always saying we got to get Raina out of there. But I mean, they're
Hashtag save Rena.
hashtag save Raina. So
Justice for Rena.
yeah. So who was Ashley pre-engagement? Because her whole engagement thing is so funny to me. So prior to her dating her now fiance Shashank, is she has been self-proclaimed like she only pursues rich men, people that were at her level because she's so wealthy. And when she met, she has a pseudonym for her fiance, and she calls him Sparkle Eyes, which is so immature. It's like
Sparkle eyes.
you're 41 years old. Why are you referring to your fiance by? Why don't you just refer to him as his God-given name?
Right. Like you don't need like a Mr. Sexy Zoom man like nickname.
Yes, and people were theorizing online. They're like, literally, it's probably because his name is so like not American that she might
What
be
is his
like,
name?
shush, it's Shshank.
Shashank.
Yeah. And it's not even like she's trying to hide his name. Like she'll tag him and she follows him, but it's like we know his name. So why do you keep hiding it under this pseudonym? Like we know his name at this point. It just seems very immature and almost like she's afraid to like pronounce it on air. I don't get it.
Like it almost feels like a microaggression in itself.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you. That's what I meant to say. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, that is weird.
Um, sorry, just to do a quick tangent. Olivia added this, and this is talked about a lot on Reddit, that people are like, does Ashley have a weird fetish around her brother? She always says that this guy, Jordan Malata, who's an Eagles football player. Are you familiar, Sophie?
No, but like sure.
My Lotta says
My Lata.
Jordan is
Jordan
her
Mailata.
Georgia Milata is her hall pass because he is a mixture of her fiance and her brother.
That's
Like
so scary.
it's and so her brother married this girl Stephanie. She talks a lot about her sister-in-law, but I swear to God, the sister-in-law and Ashley look so
I
similar.
was gonna say, I was like, oh, she ended up getting married because I thought that was this photo of her
No,
brother and her sister-in-law. Like I thought that was her.
a lot of people do. So sorry, that's a
Wait,
quick
what is
tangent.
with siblings that fuck lately? Like Dave from Love is Blind, the White
White
Lotus.
Lotus.
I don't know, you guys. Like y
It's
gr brothers and sisters. Christy and I just have sisters.
sisters. So I can't participate in the
I
conversation,
don't know,
but
you guys. Like, what is with like sisters and brothers like wanting to it's yeah, wanting to fuck each other lately. Like I'm kind of disturbed by it. Like, what's the deal with that?
and I would say like we're not just trying to make up rumors. The resemblance is uncanny. You cannot not
Yeah,
see it. Like
I can definitely see it.
so that's just a quick side note on the weirdness of the brother and the and whatever the fiance. But again, everyone is kind of like judging Ashley for getting so someone wrote it on Reddit and it was actually like well put. It's her handle is regular underscore progress 9236 or he. Everyone is judging Ashley so hard for getting married, not because she isn't allowed to change her mind. Ashley has been a judgmental see you next Tuesday towards people for changing their minds. Her entire platform is I don't want kids. No man below my impossible standards. I cannot share a bed daily. She even went so far as to say like she didn't want to even live in the same household as her husband if she were to get married. Then out of nowhere, she says she's working with a matchmaker, then ends up checking her DMs, and she ends up responding to this guy who she now coins as Sparkle Eyes, who is way younger than her. Also, a trait she enjoys in men, and I think should be talked about. She would also judge the fuck out of a friend who got engaged without living in the same state as their boyfriend. I promise fans are not hard on Ashley because we are not open to change. It's because she has not given the same respect to others based on things that she said on the podcast. And she's definitely not respectful of Raina's changes. So that's just a quick synopsis of why people have a problem. It's not that you cannot change your mind, but you just put this
hmm
impossible standard and then you just don't, then you go against that standard, but you hold everyone else to that same standard.
It almost sounded like it was like a defense mechanism. Like it was like, I don't want a husband. I don't want kids. I don't want to live with a man because she probably deep down thought that would never happen for her. And then it did. And
I
like
think, yes,
that's fine, but it's very transparent as far as I can
correct.
see it.
Yep. And so who is her fiance? So as we mentioned, Shashank, they have reportedly been dating since May of 2023. He is 33 years old, which is 7 years her junior.
Wow. So he's like he's significantly younger. Not
Yeah,
like significantly, but
like
like
8 years
yeah.
younger. Yeah, 8 or 9. Yeah. So this was the whole debacle with the inception of their relationship. So, when I mentioned that girls will take either their boyfriends or like their guy friends to these shows?
Yeah.
So he had attended a Girls Gotta Eat live show years prior. May have been with a girlfriend, may have been with the girl who's a friend. I actually am still unclear with that. But he was at a live show with this girl who people think is his girlfriend. And I guess they might have taken him up on stage and they asked him what he liked about his girlfriend and he couldn't come up with anything. So whatever, like he was like a participant. And
That's crazy.
he later DM'd Ashley after he broke up, him and that said girlfriend broke up, and said, "You are my hall pass." Something like that. Like, "You're my hall pass," or like, "I have a crush on you." Something like super cheesy. And Ashley said that her and this guy had been DMing back and forth over months since he had sent that DM. And when her and Raina had a live show in Boston, they had decided to meet up and they had hooked up for the first time that night. And then she realized, oh, I actually like this guy. And they started dating. So literally, he was a fan before they
Wow.
started dating. And this is the juiciest part. So, Reddit, they come in with the receipts. So there was this girlie that came out and said, I actually have a history of getting hit up by this guy in the past. She said, I used to be like a big Tumblr girl, and he would actually DM me frequently on Instagram after meeting me on Tumblr. She fucking provided these receipts, right? And it's like him responding to all of her stories and they go unresponded to. So, for instance, September 2nd,
Damn.
2017, you look so good. Then she goes, thanks, period. It's new eyeliner. Gonna have to borrow it. How's everything been? Doesn't go responded to. September 20th. And I guess she posted a story. He says, more this, less food. I'm assuming she probably posted like a thirst trap. Then October 13th, 2017. Then he replied to her story, Woburn Brewery. And she responds with like that ghost shocked emoji. And so this is what this girl had to say, which I thought was so juicy. Hi. So I know nothing about this podcast or these people, but I randomly thought about Shashank just now and I decided to look him up online. To my surprise, I see Reddit posts talking all about him, which intrigued the hell out of me to say the least, and led me here. I met Shashank on Tumblr back in 2011, 2012. Him and I never actually met in person, but we had an online thing off and on for a bit. However, he had the similar online flings with multiple girls. And as an early 20-something year old, I looked at every girl he followed and interacted with off of Tumblr. He was actually dating a Canadian woman and a woman from Delaware at the same time. I don't think they actually ever found out about each other, but I'm not surprised. He must have met this woman online. He would tweet random celebrities with witty jokes, and he's charming as hell with women, like borderline mean, but it's endearing for some reason. I haven't interacted with him for 9 years. For all I know, he's grown up and changed, but I will say the last time I did interact with him, he randomly followed me on Instagram out of nowhere, and I had not talked to him in years at this point, and he hit on me hard. While I was clearly in a relationship, my boyfriend was plastered all over my grid, constantly replying to my stories. But as soon as I didn't show any interest, he unfollowed me shortly thereafter. And then, of course, she attaches the receipts. So I think this just
But
shows.
he wasn't dating Ashley yet while he was DMing this girl,
Correct.
but he
Yes,
was
yes.
being just like creepy on Instagram.
Correct. This is just from like years ago,
Yeah, yeah,
2017, but it just kind of shows like this is his behavior of kind of just sliding into girls'
yeah.
DMs.
Ew, it like gross and embarrassing. Also, the fact that he like had a girlfriend that he went to the Girls Gotta Eat show with, like, you know what they say, like how you get him is
Get
how
him,
you
it's how you.
lose him, or whatever they say. Like, ugh,
Yes, yes.
gross.
That's why I just, his behavior is very yucky to me after these girls comes through with the receipts of like, oh, this is kind of his MO. He reaches out for girls that have this online presence. People always say that Ashley's his sugar mama. He can't make nearly as much as she does just based on the numbers and data alone. Like, is he in it for the
Right.
wrong or right reasons? So let's talk about the engagement ring, right? So he allegedly wanted to propose in February of 2024, only after a few months of dating. According to their episode that they released 5 months ago, he had asked her parents in the June prior. And people are suspecting, like, God, that's a quick timeline. But I guess she is older. Like, I will give them that. She's in her 40s. He's in his mid 30s. I guess it's not outside of the realm of possibilities that he would want to take the next step with her. So I'll give him that. But in the episode where Ashley announced her engagement, listeners noted that she provided like minimal details about the proposal. People thought the tone was lacking enthusiasm, whatever. And she was so vehement on the ring choice. She said, I decided I wanted this type of ring. I gave him instructions and he delivered based on those instructions. I told him I didn't want a traditional ring. I wanted a ruby diamond and he got me what I wanted and whatever. That's it. Now, take a look at this ring. What are your thoughts being a recently married woman, being ring shopping with Henry? Like, what are your thoughts on this ruby ring
The ring
before?
before. It's pretty. It's like a very like it's modest. It's not super flashy. It's just kind of like a classic. And some people, want the different color gemstones. I personally just wanted just your traditional diamond, but I know a lot of people have sapphires, emeralds, rubies, like yeah, very, very classic and modest.
Yeah. It's like a simple gold band with a ruby. And a couple episodes later, she reveals to her audience, listen, I know I told Shashank that I wanted this ruby diamond with this simple gold band, and now that it's actually here in the flesh, I realize I've now changed my mind. I want something a little bit more like pimped out. I want something a little bit more flashy, a little bit more boisterous. Like I want something else. So she admitted to her listeners that she had to have the most uncomfortable conversation with her fiance that despite her desires and all of the check boxes being marked off, he she wasn't okay with the ring. So she went and she got it redesigned. And she posted about it and says, I shared this story about my new band on this week's episode of GGE, and I've gotten so many messages asking for a close up pic. And I should tell you guys to watch the episode on YouTube for pics, but fuck it, here it is. At Aurora, New York, created the most perfect ring I've ever laid my eyes on, and I could not be more obsessed. So now it's the same ruby diamond, but it's like
It
what do you
has
call it?
it so it's the same ruby, but now it has a diamond band. And it's not just pave. It's like they look like I'm zooming in, they look like round diamonds all around the band.
Yes, yes. And
So
I
it's
think
definitely flashier. That's such an uncomfortable like conversation to have. I actually know like a friend of a friend that did the same thing where she had just like a classic like oval and then was like, "You know what? I want it to be flashier. I want a halo around it." And you have to have that conversation with your fiance about it. Like it's so uncomfortable.
And a lot of people were quick to say this is just indicative of a power imbalance because he it seems
He
like more
he
modest.
he got what he could afford and then she fixed it up in a way that she could afford to. it seems like. I don't know.
Yes.
And it's like, I want everyone to be happy with their engagement ring. Like, if you can afford to do that, like,
Go
great.
for it.
I just am so happy I did not have to have that conversation with my fiance. That, like,
Well,
hey, like, thanks. It was like a nice thought, but like, I'm actually going to throw, like, you know, $50,000 out there to spruce it up a little bit with more diamonds.
it's just so uncomfortable. And I think this kind of harkens back to a lot of people just saying, what are his intentions here? Like they had this whirlwind of a romance. They were long distance. They've every time that they spent time together, it's been like in a vacation setting, right? Because then they have to go back to their respective locations. And all of a sudden he's clearly been a fan. It's like he's finally gotten with his quote unquote celebrity crush, so to speak. And people
His
feel
hall
like
pass.
his hall pass, and people feel like his intentions aren't necessarily the most pure. And people just have a lot of questions because now she's said on the podcast, I think over the last month, he moved from Boston/Woburn to Los Angeles to be with her. They moved into her house, and it's
Oh,
kind of
so
like
she is living with a man after
yeah,
all.
and people love to call her out. They're like, Ashley literally for years has been the girl that I don't want to even live with my fiance. We can be even long distance for the entirety of the relationship. I could care less. And like she's had to walk it back and she has admitted, like, I get that my mind's changed, but she loves to talk about on the podcast how perfect their relationship is. And it's like he can do no wrong. And it's just exhausting to hear about someone who just is so clearly trying to paint a different picture. It's actually just kind of triggering for me because I have a ex best friend that like I literally lost over a situation where I was like, I feel like this person is not the best for you, and I was literally disowned for it. So I keep my mouth shut now. But it's
Mm.
so exhausting to hear someone so clearly paint a different story than what's actually happening, and it's like an
Hmm.
insult to my intelligence. You know what I mean? I'm like, you think I'm that stupid?
And also, like, the people that have to rub in your face how perfect their relationship is, that I don't know. Those are the people that, in my opinion, aren't as happy behind the scenes. You know what I
It's like,
mean? And I
yeah,
understand that it's like that is their podcast talking about their personal lives and talking about men and talking about sex and all of that. But like, I don't know, which is different from our show. It's like you don't hear me like bragging about like Henry or whatever, but I mean, it's a different show. But just generally speaking, I think that people that are really braggadocious about their relationships are the least happy.
yeah,
And so she likes to brag to Raina, who Raina is still single,
correct.
and she likes to brag to Raina like, "Oh, look at me. Look at me. I'm engaged and you're not."
No, I mean, and that's why I think people feel like there's now a power imbalance between her and Reina because you have a podcast that's centered around dating, relationships, sex, boyfriends,
Hmm.
whatever. And now it's almost like, well, Ashley almost feels like not only do I have the boyfriend and the family and da da da, but like, what do you have? And I think they've talked about that dynamic. Like Reina has said, a lot of people ask me, well, how are you feeling now that Ashley's engaged? And I genuinely feel like Reina is actually very happy for Ashley. I don't feel like there's even one iota of resentment. If you juxtapose that when Reina had a relationship a couple of years ago, Ashley was pissed. Like you could tell the vibes were off. They admitted that they were fighting more than ever. Like
Wow.
it's that kind of friendship where you could be you kind of know who your true friends are when like you're going through something like really great and glamorous. And I always say
Yes.
it's not the people that are there for you when you're down because anyone could be fucking there for you when you're in the pits and your life sucks.
Yeah,
Who's
because
actually there
they want to enjoy it when you're down.
exactly? But who's actually there for you when you're on top?
Yep. Yep.
And Sophie and I have talked about this. Who's there and cheering you on when to celebrate your wins? And that
Yes.
is a true friend.
That's the real barometer of a true friend. People
Yeah.
that are genuinely happy for you. It's like you can have the friends that come by your side again after you've been laid off or dumped or whatever it is, but like
Anyone come
the
by then.
anyone can do that, you know?
Hmm.
It's the ones that are there for you when you're on top
Hmm. And I
and want
think,
to celebrate you.
right. And I think, unfortunately for Reina, the same cannot be said if the roles were reversed. So I don't know. I think this is a really long episode, and we can definitely do a part two if it's necessary. But I think this kind of encapsulates like the most problematic pieces of Girls Gotta Eat. And so, with that being said, I'll probably still listen if a topic interests me because sometimes their episodes are interesting and engaging. The one last week, I couldn't even get through the first 25 minutes. I had to shut it off. But I'll listen here and there if I so choose. What are your thoughts as we land the plane?
First of all, when is Ashley's wedding? Has she talked about it?
Oh, so people were theorizing it was going to be, I think I read Halloween weekend of 2025.
Okay. So it like obviously hasn't happened yet, but it's like it is happening.
Impending, yeah.
So it sounds like I said, that Ashley is kind of the more problematic one. We didn't really touch on any of Raina's, faults other than the 9/11 joke.
Hmm.
Um, so let us know, you guys, if we missed anything
Yeah.
when it comes to Raina, but it definitely sounds like Ashley is Ashley's the problem.
Yeah, she's a force, man. Like I their whole trajectory is really interesting and fortunately for them, they're laughing their way to the bank. I mean, clearly Ashley won't
Clearly, yeah.
let you forget it.
Yeah, it's like
So
we know, Ashley, we know.
we get it.
We get
We get it.
it.
But yeah, that's kind of it.
I don't feel like I'm missing out on much by not listening to their podcast,
You're
but
not. And if
I'm
there's yeah.
curious. I'm curious to hear how much overlap we have. Like, are you a baby snark and you're also a snack? Let us know. I'm very curious. And, if this has kind of changed how you thought of them or if you still love the podcast, either way. I know obviously with like the Toast Girls, when we did that episode, there were a lot of people that have since, not just because of our episode, but because of the Elon thing, have kind of like turned on the Toast Girls, have snacks or snackers or whatever they're called, like gotten to that point with Ashley and Rena, or are they just still kind of along for the train wreck?
I
I'm
think with the
curious.
toast, it was a mass exodus based on like
Yeah.
several cancellations
Yes.
versus Girls Gotta Eat. It's kind of like how I've viewed their podcast. I think the quality has just waned. So they've
Hmm.
seen a decrease, but it hasn't been so immediate.
Yeah. It also was interesting that, like, if you have a podcast about like sex and being crazy and guzzling cum or whatever they say, like, and one gets engaged and one is starting to like settle down, it kind of puts the onus on Raina to kind of show up with the crazy. It almost reminds me of the Alex Cooper and Sophia Franklin,
Yes.
even though Alex Cooper wasn't like engaged yet when her and Sophia were still together. Um, Sophia was always the crazy one. I felt like she always carried the show on her back with her stories, and Alex Cooper had her like throwing up French onion soup or whatever on someone's dick. But for the most part, Sophia had the crazy stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now is
It's
it like Raina is like kind of carrying the show on her back because she still is the one that's out there and like hooking up? Or like what is that dynamic like now? Besides
I
actually bragging to Raina that she's engaged.
I think that the dynamic is such that Ashley can speak about what it's like to kind of enter this different stage of life, and Raina's kind of out here still in the field, like
Hmm.
trying to find a dude or whatever. So I think the podcast will continue successfully because they can still both speak on different experiences, and I think their audience has grown with them, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right, right. That makes it. It's kind of like We Met at Acme, Lindsay Metzler.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
she had a dating podcast, and then she moved on to different stages of life, but like her followers and listeners are like, okay, well, like I'm kind of moving into that stage too. So it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good like analogy. But no, let us know if you would want us to kind of cover like part two, or if you're just like I've heard enough of these fucking
Yeah.
girls.
No, there's a lot, you guys. This doc, and
Yeah.
Olivia, our researcher, did an amazing job. This doc is extremely long, so there's more, but I feel like this was like the top line, like most important things to cover. And Christy, thank you for taking the reins with this.
Yeah.
My throat is killing me. I'm sorry if my voice is like extra, extra annoying and insufferable and just like intolerable. I'm sorry.
No, my God.
But yeah, I learned a lot
Yeah.
about Ashley and Raina.
Well, you guys, you know where to find us at Snarkbait Pod on Instagram, same handle on TikTok, Soph_Ross on IG. I am X Knows All. We're now available on YouTube at Snarkbait Pod. We are now available on Spotify video. You can comment. We engage with all of you guys. Give us a follow. We're trying to grow the show. And unfortunately, with that comes Instagram followers. So
Yeah,
we're
and
excited to see you there.
leave us a 5-star review, why don't ya?
Yeah, we do a 5-star review roundup. So we're excited to see this come
Please,
through. Be nice,
pretty
please.
please. Yeah, please be nice. Thanks for listening, guys. This was a fun one. And thank you to Jordan, our producer, Olivia, our researcher, and Jenna, our social manager. Couldn't do it without them. And thank you, baby snarks, for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.